Right guys, I'm trying a new angle in this video. Tell me what you think, if this is a better way to vlog or not. Bit further from the camera, which is a bit better I think. But this is going to be a video response to ProBman5's video on region locking, and the link to in the lower bar will be to his original video, and highly recommend that you go and check it out and subscribe if you like what you see. It's one of my favourite channels on YouTube, and if you're someone who likes a lot of variety in your videos, and you know, apart from the regular just pickups and gameplays, then this guy will be a good channel to subscribe to, because he does great topical discussion videos, and he does it in a very methodical way, so they're always very informative and engaging. And yeah, loads of really varied content, and they're a great channel, definitely worth a subscription. Go and check out ProBman5. But the video he made was about region locking. Now, so this is kind of a difficult subject to talk about without bias against it, of course. As gamers, I'm pretty sure that every single one of us here is going to be against region locking, because it's just effectively cutting you off from a certain percentage of games, and it is completely unnecessary, and the arguments for it do not hold up to scrutiny. I'm going to try and go through some of those in this video. So first of all, a little bit of history on region locking. The first, obviously, we can talk about PCs. They're by and large region free. A bit more complicated, but we can say pretty much generally PCs region free. The first console to have region lock was the Nintendo NES. Now this was done by the 10 NES chip, which was actually a chip that made it region locked. Later models, the top loader was region free. Of course, other systems went in different ways. You know, you had chips to lock out. You also had different. The hardware was just being shaped differently, so the cartridges couldn't fit in, of course, and that kind of thing. And later on, obviously, software was brought into the equation on discs and on later cartridges as well. But of course, as we all know, all of those methods were very easily circumvented. So, you know, with the Mega Drives and SNES, for example, you had completely legal third-party converter cartridges that you could just buy, like, completely above board, buy those and be able to play any game on any system. So there's always been ways around it. So there is no law requiring region lockout. This is something that has been decided upon in different situations by the game companies. Now, we can see from history that it is pretty much down to the console manufacturers that have been the main drive behind region locking, which goes against some of the arguments that we often hear in favour of it. Now, some of those are things like you know, licensing laws. Maybe software houses don't have the license to release games in all regions, so the argument is put forward by some industry, you know, people that work in the industry, that they need region lock to help police, you know, who can make money from which games in which regions. As we've seen by a video that I'll link to in the information bar by the community manager for Activision. His name, I can't quite remember it at the minute. It's Dan Amarick. Dan Amarick from Activision makes this argument, and it's a common one, that yeah, region locking, one of the rationales for it is so that to police who can make money from which games in which regions, but that doesn't hold up to scrutiny for a couple of reasons. First of all, we've seen from the PS3, which is region free, that only one game out of the whole library is actually region locked. Now, I should mention Sony gave publishers and developers the ability to region lock their games themselves via the software, by their own volition, and only one game in the entire PS3 library has been region locked. So that tells you that publishers and developers really haven't cared at all about region locking their games, and it doesn't make any sense, because it just cuts off you know, a wider market. And of course, if you're selling those games in a certain region, you're abiding by your licensing you know, license, and people will buy the games in that region and then import them, export them, and that kind of thing. So you haven't broken any laws, you haven't violated your licensing agreements. They've been sold in your region and then sold on when the games were effectively second hand. But yeah, so it's console manufacturers that have been behind region locking, so we can see quite clearly who has the motivation to do that. But it doesn't make sense for many reasons. As I've said already, there's lots of different ways around region locking, some of those completely above board, legitimate, like cartridges, and some of them, you know, modifications, again, not illegal at all, and other ways that we've seen. So it doesn't make sense for a few other reasons as well. I'll try and go through them here. So, what else we got? keeping pricing competitive. Now, this is one of the reasons that it is done, and that is because historically speaking in Europe, games have been a bit more expensive than they have been in America, so they've been able to keep their pricing structure the way that they want it, so people haven't been able to circumvent those higher prices in some regions by just importing games. But this all seems like a bit of an overkill as well to me, because it's not a huge problem. As we've seen from the PS3, it's a great case study to examine region locking issues, because of course it's broken with recent trends, past trends, then it's gone region free, so it's a great system to look at, to analyse. So with PS3 in Europe, you don't see shelves full of NTSC games, you don't see shelves of import games. People will always prefer, the retailers and the buyers will always prefer to get game on their region purely for convenience, if it's available. So the only time really that importing games comes into its own is when a game is not available in a certain region. So again, why would you want to lock that game if you're not even intending to release it in other regions? You're just limiting your market again. If you're not going to release it, say you're not going to release a game in Europe and only in America. If you region lock it, all you're doing is cutting off the chance that people are going to buy more of them in your region to then export. So you're losing out on sales. It makes no difference. Like, the only games that I've really got that are not my region are ones that weren't released here. So we have Luna on Sega CD, for example. Not released in Europe because notoriously back in the day, console manufacturers, publishers and developers, whoever, seemed to decide that Europe just didn't like RPGs that much. So we all had to import the best ones, a lot of the best ones anyway. So we have Luna, and we have just a few examples. Trazia, which didn't come out in Europe either, that's a Genesis, and Ys 3, another Genesis exclusive. May have come out in Japan though, of course, but yeah, it didn't come out in Europe. So I've had to import all those, and I've got a modded machine, but there's lots of ways around it anyway. So to play Luna, I have this CDX cartridge, which you put in your Mega Drive, and it allows you to play all import Mega CD games. So again, a completely legal way around it, one of many. So again, just another reason why it doesn't make any sense to make games region locked. And of course it's something that has undulated through the history of video games. In the Mega Drive, Sega of course chose to go region locked via software halfway through the system's lifespan, because of course already the early ones were all region free, later ones were locked. So you've got, for example, Sonic 1 and 2 region free, Sonic 3 region locked. Makes no sense at all. What motivated that decision? It's got to be down to business. It's got to be down to the fact that sometimes games releases were staggered, and they wanted to try and control the profits that were being made in each different region. But in the end, I think it cuts their nose off despite the face, like I've explained. Yeah. So one of the other reasons that's given for region locking, but it's another really weak one, is political reasons. So some games might be too sensitive to release in certain locations or be played in certain locations more to the point. For example, Call of Duty games and Ghost Recon games that I just dropped. These are war games that typically have, a lot of our war games in the West typically have like, Korean baddies, Russian baddies, this kind of thing. So maybe that wouldn't go down too well in different regions. But again, if that's an issue, don't release it in those regions. It doesn't, people are still going to be able to play it and get around it if they want to. So region locking those games isn't going to stop people hearing about those games, potentially getting offended, and it's not going to stop them playing them if they want to. If you want to limit their exposure to them, then don't release them in those locations, that's fine. But it is quite a muddled kind of issue within gaming, of course. Now, the one area where it would seem logical that region locking should never happen, of course, is in portable gaming. So historically speaking, all handhelds have been region free, all Game Boys have been region free, and that kind of thing. The vast majority of handhelds have been region free, right up to the Nintendo DS. So here's a US copy DS game called Miami Law. But it's funny because this is a US game, it's region free, so it can be played anywhere, but it was made in Japan, and it says on the back, for sale, rental and use only in USA, Canada, Mexico and Latin America, even though it is region free. but it's on a portable system, so of course it should be region free. Now, just the very idea of making a region lock in a portable system that you can take from region to region seems to make no sense at all. But that's what they've done with the 3DS, and in my opinion, that's just going to encourage piracy and hacking to get around those region locks. So I think Nintendo have really, screwed themselves on that point, and time will see. Yeah, so that's a little video on region locking. I think it's completely self-defeating. I think the arguments don't hold up at all, and I think it's completely anti-consumer, and the reasons are only for business reasons, but wrong-headed business reasons. I really don't think that it's going to help them in the ways that they feel it does. Loads more to say on this subject. What have you got to say on it? Video responses to Pro B-Man 5, whose video is in the low bar, and again, awesome channel he's got there, really interesting, lots of variety, severely undersubbed. Go and check him out, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.